Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why kids sometimes lose their love for math as they get older? Well, this new study dives deep into that question and finds some fascinating answers. So, we all know that as kids go through school, their interest in subjects like math can sometimes fade. But what is really happening with their feelings about math? Are they all feeling the same thing, or are there different paths this motivation can take? That is exactly what our researchers wanted to find out. They looked at how kids' feelings about their math abilities, how much they enjoyed math, how useful they thought math was, and how much stress or annoyance math caused them, all from 4th grade all the way up to 8th grade. The big idea here is that while we often talk about math motivation going down for everyone, individual students might be experiencing this decline in very different ways. Some might be dropping out of love with math quickly, others might be finding it harder and harder to keep going, and maybe some are even staying interested despite some challenges. The researchers wanted to see if they could find these different groups or profiles of students. They also wanted to see if gender played a role and how these different paths affected how well students actually did in math. To do this, they followed a group of nearly 900 Finnish street students over several years. They started when the kids were in 4th grade and kept track of them until they finished 8th grade. The cool part about their method, called an accelerated longitudinal design, is that they didn't just follow one single group of kids for 5 years. Instead, they had different groups of kids starting at different times, which helps them get a really good picture of how things change over those important grade levels, especially around the big jump from elementary to middle school. Now, how did they figure all this out? They used some fancy statistical tools. Think of it like this. They first looked at the average path of motivation for all the students combined, like drawing one big line showing the general trend. Then, using something called growth mixture modeling, they looked for different clusters of students, each following their own unique growth path or trajectory. It is like looking at a bunch of different lines on a graph, each representing a different way a student's feelings about math changed over time. So, what did they find? Well, the average story pretty much matched what we often hear. For most students, their belief in their math abilities, how much they enjoyed math, and how useful they thought math was all tended to go down as they got older. But on the flip side, the negative feelings about math, like annoyance or stress, actually went up. That is a pretty consistent pattern. But here is where it gets really interesting. When they looked for those different groups, they found 3 main profiles of how students' math motivation developed. First, there was the positive declining group. This was the biggest group, and they basically followed that average pattern. They started with pretty good feelings about math, but those feelings gradually faded over time, and their stress levels went up a bit. Still, they generally stayed on a positive track. Then they found the struggling profile. This group started off with lower motivation and higher stress about math. And as they went through school, their positive feelings about math dropped even more, and their stress and frustration shot up. Unsurprisingly, this group also had the lowest math performance. This is the group that really needs support. And finally, the most surprising profile was the fading interest group. These students actually had really high confidence in their math abilities and did really well on math tests pretty much all the way through. But here is the twist: they didn't actually enjoy math that much, and they didn't think it was particularly useful. Their intrinsic value, meaning their genuine interest, dropped dramatically. What is also notable is that this group was mostly made up of boys. This suggests that some students can be really good at math and get good grades, even if they don't actually like it or see the point. Their confidence is carrying them, but their genuine interest is disappearing. So, what is the big takeaway from all of this? The researchers emphasize that looking at just the average trend in math motivation really hides a lot of important individual differences. While many kids do experience a decline, the way that decline happens and the feelings associated with it can be vastly different. These different paths have real consequences for how well students actually perform in math. Let's dig a little deeper into the gender aspect. The researchers thought boys might be more likely to be in those adaptive or positive profiles. But that wasn't quite what they found. While both boys and girls seemed to follow similar motivational paths overall, boys were more likely to be in that fading interest group. This means boys more than girls seemed to be able to keep their high confidence and good grades even as their enjoyment of math disappeared. The researchers suggest this might be linked to boredom from math being too easy for them at times, a feeling that boys sometimes report more than girls. And how does this all connect to math performance? This was pretty clear. The struggling profile, with low initial motivation and increasing frustration, performed the worst. Their performance also improved the slowest, meaning that gap between them and the other groups got bigger and bigger over time. The fading interest group, even though their interest was fading, performed just as well as the positive declining group. This highlights something important. High confidence can keep you doing well in school, even if you are not enjoying the subject. This is where it gets really thought-provoking. You might think that students who are doing well are inherently motivated and engaged. But the fading interest group shows that is not always true. They have high ability beliefs, which helps them perform well, but their declining interest and low perceived usefulness could mean they're at risk for not choosing math, heavy careers, or even advanced math courses later on. Their current success isn't necessarily a sign of future engagement. Now, like all good science, this study has its limits because it was done in Finland. With its specific school system and culture, it might not perfectly apply to every country. Also, they only looked at a few aspects of motivation. Future research could explore other things like how kids' identities or how much they feel supported by parents and teachers play a role in these different motivational paths. So, what can we do with this information for the struggling kids? It is clear they need early identification and support. It is not just about increasing their interest, it might also be about helping them manage their negative feelings, their emotional costs, so they don't give up. For the fading interest group, the advice is different. They might need more challenging material to keep them engaged and activities that help them see the relevance of math, because right now their confidence is keeping them afloat, but their interest is sinking. The researchers also suggest that schools should think about regularly checking in on students' motivation, not just their grades, because a student who is getting good grades might still be losing their passion for a subject, and that could lead to them making choices later on that they might regret. It's about looking beyond just the performance number. In a nutshell, this study shows us that the journey of math motivation is a lot more varied than we might think. While the average student's interest might wane, some are struggling more than others, and some are coasting on confidence even as their genuine interest disappears. Understanding these different paths is key to helping all students not just succeed in math, but also to develop a lasting, genuine connection with the subject. Thanks for watching RUBIN'S Mind Lab. If you found this breakdown helpful, give us a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the amazing world of psychology. See you next time.